The scent of brine and frozen pine needles clings to the air, a phantom memory of a shore that has long since vanished into the gray. Here in the heart of the Atlantic, the world has ceased to be a place of earth and stone. It is merely a shifting obsidian void. The longship cuts through a fog so thick it swallows the horizon, turning the sturdy oak of the prow into a ghost ship sailing through a cloud. There is no sun to guide them, no stars to offer a silver map to the desperate. There is only the rhythmic, mocking slap of icy water against the hull and the low, guttering prayer of a navigator whose knuckles are white against a jagged piece of spar. He does not look to the heavens for a sign. He knows the sky has turned its back on him. Instead, his gaze is fixed downward, cast upon the churning skin of the deep. He is watching the swell, the heavy, rhythmic breathing of a titan that moves beneath the keel. To the uninitiated, the waves are chaos, a mindless violence of salt and spray. But to the man who carries the weight of 30 lives in his chest, the sea speaks a secret language of vibration and resistance. It is a forbidden geometry, a map drawn in the displacement of water and the subtle tilt of the mast. He feels the phantom pull of a distant land, a vibration that travels up through the wood, through the soles of his feet, and into his very marrow. He senses the interference of unseen shores, the way the deep-sea rollers break and shudder when they strike a shelf still days away, hidden beneath the heavy veil of the world. Each shudder of the ship is a syllable. Each roll is a warning. The crew watches him in a silence more suffocating than the mist, their breath blooming like white flowers in the freezing air, waiting for a single nod to prove they are not already dead men sailing a forgotten sea. Yet even as he decodes the pulse of the abyss, the fog begins to thin, revealing a sky not of light, but of a strange, predatory darkness. The birds have stopped their crying, and the wind has taken on a sharp, metallic edge. Something else is watching them from the periphery of the storm, a sign not of land, but of a predator that follows the wake of those who dare to master the pathless waters. A single raven, its feathers the color of wet coal and slicked with the morning's frost, sits perched upon the dragon-headed prow. Its black, unblinking eye reflects the endless, shimmering void of the North Sea, a mirror to the abyss that waits beneath the keel. The bird is a fragment of the night left behind by the dawn, a passenger whose only fare is the hope of the desperate men behind it. The navigator reaches out, his fingers cracked by salt and the biting cold of the spray, to feel the frantic, rhythmic heartbeat of the creature against his palm. It is a tiny, vibrating engine of survival, the only thing on this ship that does not know the paralyzing weight of doubt. With a low, guttural murmur, a fragment of a prayer or a secret pact, he flings the bird into the gray vastness of the sky. The crew watches in a silence so profound it seems to still the very waves. They do not watch the grace of its wings or the majesty of its flight. They watch for the direction of its intent. He does not seek the horizon with his eyes, but waits to see if the raven returns to the wooden womb of the ship. If it circles and descends, it is a sentence of death, a sign that the world is still nothing but water and wind. But if it vanishes into the mist, it has found a scent the human nose cannot detect, the ancient, invisible perfume of damp earth and nesting trees. There is a heavy, sacred tension in this waiting, a realization that their lives are tethered to the instinct of a scavenger. They are masters of the sword and the shield, yet here they are children of the air, helpless and small. They hold their breath as if the very act of exhaling might blow the bird off course, staring into the haze until their eyes sting. It is a gamble of the soul, a reliance on a wild wisdom that sees the unseen paths carved by the wind.
But as the silence stretches, the navigator's hand drops to the hilt of a knife hidden in the folds of his cloak. He knows that while the birds may find the land, they cannot find the truth hidden in the stones of the earth itself. Beneath the deck, in the dripping darkness of the hold, another secret is waiting to be unearthed, one that does not fly, but pulls.
In the suffocating, smoky darkness of the ship's hold, the world above ceases to exist. There is no wind here, no screaming gulls, only the low, rhythmic groan of shifting timber and the heavy scent of damp wool and old grease. A man kneels in the shadows, his face illuminated by the flickering, dying amber of a single tallow candle. Before him sits a simple wooden bowl, filled to the brim with water so pale and still it looks like a sheet of ice. He holds a sliver of dark, jagged stone, a splinter of magnetite, whispered to be a fragment of a fallen star, birthed in the fires of the heavens and cooled in the depths of the earth. With a hand that has held shields against the breaking of empires, he gently places the stone upon a thin sliver of cork. It begins to dance. To the priests of the sun-drenched south, this is a heresy, a dark ritual intended to summon the spirits of the deep. But to the Norsemen, it is something far more ancient and far more honest. It is a fragile, silent dialogue with the very bones of the world. He watches, barely daring to breathe, as the stone shudders and spins, caught in the grip of a force that cannot be seen, touched, or bargained with. The needle trembles, then slows, pulled by a ghostly tether toward the frozen, absolute north. It is a haunting vigil, a moment where the boundary between the physical and the mystical dissolves into a single point of direction. In this sightless mist, where the stars have failed and the landmarks have been erased, the only certainty is this invisible tug, a tether to a home that remains miles beneath the horizon. There is a terrible loneliness in this devotion, a man trusting his life and the lives of his kin to a rock that dreams of the pole. But even as the needle finds its mark, the air begins to change. The stillness of the hold is broken by a sudden sharp chill that does not come from the water, but from the sky above. A different kind of light begins to bleed through the cracks in the deck, not the warm glow of a hearth, but a cold, translucent fire that turns the mist into a wall of amber. The sun is hidden, yet the sky is burning. The sun is a ghost, a pale and featureless smudge haunting a sky of leaden gray. There are no shadows on the deck, no sharp lines of contrast to tell a man where he stands or how far he has strayed from the grace of the shore. The sundial sits uselessly upon a salt-crusted barrel, its gnomon casting no path, its wood weeping with the damp of 1,000 miles. In this gray purgatory, time and direction have bled into one another, leaving the crew suspended in a world without a face. To lose the sun is to lose the soul of the voyage. It is to drift until the water claims the memory of your name. But the navigator does not surrender to the blindness of the storm. From a pouch lined with soft, worn leather, he draws a translucent crystal, a stone of light that seems to have trapped the very essence of a winter morning within its amber depths. He raises it to his eye, squinting through the mineral at the featureless ceiling of the world. As he slowly turns the stone, the dull gray of the horizon begins to shift. A sudden piercing blue glow ignites within the heart of the crystal, a celestial spark that cuts through the thickness of the clouds. With an eerie, crystalline precision, the stone pinpoints the hidden eye of the sun, revealing its exact position through the heavy curtains of the gale. This is the alchemy of the sea, a way to peel back the veil and find the path that the gods seemingly sought to hide. It is a moment of profound, lonely magic.
The navigator becomes a seer, catching the faint, polarized whispers of a dying light that no other human eye can perceive. The tension that has gripped the ship like an iron band begins to slacken, replaced by a quiet, reverent awe. They are no longer wandering, they are following a thread of light woven through a fabric of shadow. Yet, even as the stone reveals the heavens, it cannot soften the cruelty of the tides below. For all the clarity found in the sky, the water remains a bitter and changing thing, and the salt on their lips is beginning to taste of something more than just the ocean. A new sense is awakening in the navigator, one that requires no stone and no light, but a willingness to taste the very essence of the abyss.
The navigator leans over the salt-crusted gunwale, the wood groaning beneath his weight as he stares into the churning white wake of the ship. His face is a map of deep lines and old scars, weathered by a lifetime of standing between the wind and the world. With a slow, deliberate motion, he dips a trembling hand into the freezing froth, cupping the North Sea as if it were a holy relic. He brings the water to his lips, closing his eyes against the spray, and drinks. To the oarsman, it is a desperate act of thirst, but to him, it is the ultimate communion. He is not merely drinking, he is listening with his tongue to the very blood of the earth. The taste of the sea is changing. The sharp, aggressive sting of deep ocean salt is beginning to fade, replaced by a duller mineral bitterness that speaks of secrets hidden beneath the waves. He can feel the ghost of a distant glacier in the temperature of the water, a chilling runoff that has traveled 1,000 miles from a frozen mountain peak to meet his ship. He senses the silt of ancient hidden rivers, the fine, gritty signature of land that is still nothing more than a whisper on the wind. This is an intimate, visceral connection to the geography of the abyss. He is reading a history of currents that no chart could ever hold. In this moment, the navigator is no longer a sailor. He is a bridge between the living and the deep. He guides the wooden keel through an invisible graveyard of ice, steering by the flavor of the tide and the shifting chemistry of the foam. It is a lonely mastery, a burden of knowledge that separates him from the men who simply row and pray. They see only the gray wall of the horizon, but he tastes the proximity of the shore, sensing the peril and the promise of the silt as it washes against his teeth. But as the bitterness of the river water deepens, a new sound begins to vibrate through the hull, a low, rhythmic thrum that does not belong to the tides or the wind. It is a vibration of life, a deep-sea percussion that makes the very bones of the ship shudder in fear. To find the land, they must now survive the giants that claim the water as their own. The vibrations begin in the soles of the feet, a low, tectonic thrumming that defies the howling of the wind. Beneath the heavy, salt-stiffened wool of his cloak, the navigator clutches a notched wooden staff, its surface worn to a glass-like smoothness by years of frantic, white-knuckled gripping. He stands at the dead center of the deck, his eyes sealed shut against the spray, letting his spine become a plumb line for the ship's subtle pitch and roll. To the oarsman, huddled in the spray and shivering with the cold, he is a man lost to the sea madness, a hermit of the waves talking to ghosts. But he is not listening to ghosts, he is listening to the world itself. He is tracking the deep, percussive thud of the surf as it strikes submerged reefs miles below the surface, a sound that travels through the water like a heartbeat through a chest. He hears the mournful, haunting song of the whales, their voices carrying news of currents and temperatures from the dark arteries of the deep. To the uninitiated, the ocean is a chaotic void, a flat and terrifying expanse of nothingness. To him, it is a map of echoes and shadows.
He moves not by the fallibility of sight, but by the shifting weight of the water against the oak hull, sensing the heavy, looming presence of land like a ghost standing in a pitch-black room. It is an agonizingly slow dance with the invisible. Every tilt of the deck is a signal. Every shudder of the mast is a warning of a granite wall hidden beneath the foam. He carries the survival of his kin in the balance of his inner ear, a sacred geometry of sound that dictates whether they find the harbor or a watery grave. There is no room for doubt in this silence, only a total, terrifying immersion in the rhythm of the abyss. He is waiting for the final echo, the one that tells him the path is clear. Yet as he maps the shadows of the deep, the air above begins to thicken with a different kind of movement. The heavy, mineral silence is pierced by a sudden, frantic beating of wings, a sound that does not belong to the sea. The living world is reaching out to reclaim them, and the navigator opens his eyes to see the sky filled with the very messengers of fate he has been seeking.
The midsummer sun refuses to die, hanging like a bruised copper coin just above the jagged rim of the world. In this land of the midnight sun, the shadows are long and thin, stretching across the deck like the fingers of a starving man. The light is amber and ancient, painting the sea in shades of violet and rusted iron. The navigator stands at the prow, his face bathed in this cold, eternal fire, watching the sky not for stars, but for the frantic, rhythmic pulse of life. Above the mast, the gannets and golden plovers cut through the haze, their wings beating a steady, desperate tempo against the fading light. They are a living compass, a feathered arrow pointing toward the nesting grounds of a west that no man on this ship has ever seen. He marks their passage with a fresh notch in the oak railing, his knife biting into the wood with a sharp, decisive click. It is a tally of lives, a ledger of directions that defies the terrifying emptiness of the horizon. Each notch is a promise kept, a small act of defiance against the void that has sought to swallow them for weeks. There is a profound, aching beauty in this absolute reliance on the wild, a belief that the natural world is not a prison, but a series of open doors for those brave enough to read the hinges. He does not fight the wind, he listens to the stories it carries from the cliffs. He does not fear the distance, he follows the feathers, trusting the very air to lead him through the hollow silence toward a home he can finally feel in his bones. As the first scent of peat smoke and damp earth finally drifts across the bow, the tension that has held his heart for 1,000 miles begins to dissolve. The ship slows, its wooden ribs groaning as if in relief, as the jagged silhouette of the coast rises like a titan from the surf. The journey of the navigator is ending, but for the men who step onto these new shores, a different kind of survival is just beginning. They have mastered the sea, but the land, dark, fertile and filled with the ghosts of those who came before, is waiting to see if they are worthy of its soil.